This is the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. Here's Rick Ucchino and SP3 on the Bleav Podcast Network.
Oh, what a good Tuesday morning to you after 3 hours of a jam-packed Monday Night Raw. Some good, some bad. Pretty much par for the course, I think, for a Monday Night Raw. Had a hell of a main event. SP3, do you think they're starting to put more stock into the tag team division? That's a question I'll ask you later. Don't answer right now. Cody Rhodes appears to be having the time of his life. He is loving being a babyface in front of the WWE Universe. He and The Miz had a nice little exchange, a nice little match on Monday Night Raw, and then Seth Rollins got himself involved. So we got one rematch set. Actually, we have multiple rematches set for WrestleMania Backlash, or it appears so. But we got one new feud that is starting. Sonya Deville jumping in to the women's title picture on Monday Night Raw. I'm all for it. SP3 has one glaring issue with it. We'll dive into that. Plus, my goodness, the Twitterverse was just going nuts yesterday, SP3, about Jon Moxley, and I had no idea why. And then I looked at the calendar. Well, first I asked you about it. And then I looked at the calendar and I realized, my God, it already has been 3 damn years since he left WWE. That is insane to me. That is insane that amount of time has gone by.
It goes by very fast. It goes by very fast. It's the same thing that a lot of people were surprised about Cody Rhodes, but it happens. 3 years comes by very fast, so people are recklessly speculating. So that's what we're going to do on today's show.
It will be time for everybody's favorite game show, Reckless Speculation. We're going to do 2 rounds of it coming up later on here in the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. But first things first, got to give a shout out to our friends over at Bet Online. We would not be here without them. They are the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA playoffs. Hey, SP3, what's the Lakers odds? Lakers odds? Do you have those offhand? What are those? Anyway, fights, even next season futures, they're all there. And don't forget, MLB is back. It is actually opening day in Cincinnati. We're opened on the road for the first time in 32 some odd years, whatever it is. So who are you picking to win the World Series? If you want to be bold and say the Reds, I'd bet on the Braves personally. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It is super easy to get started, so head on to the website today or use your mobile device to join and use our promo code Bleav. That is BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. And SP3, we will start with Cody Rhodes. Little bit different presentation last night. I think WWE actually made the right call here by scrapping the Cody Vader because it wasn't working with the Raw set. It was just square peg, round hole. It wasn't going to work. I actually like the whole, mist waterfall followed by an entire WrestleMania's worth of pyro for for his entrance. It's very grand. It's very Cody. I think it's a nice little switch. I thought that was this isn't saying much. All right. I thought that was the best episode of Miz TV that we had seen in quite some time. And then he had a good match with The Miz, which Cody came out on top. And then pretty much what we all knew it was going to happen. Seth Rollins gets into the ring. And that is our lead story here tonight. He challenges Cody Rhodes to a rematch at WrestleMania Backlash. Presumably, they didn't actually say that. And at the time of this recording, it has not been made official. But we all know where this is going. Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins 2 at WrestleMania Backlash. Your reaction to everything that we saw. This was Cody's first win on Monday Night Raw in 6 years.
Probably longer because I don't remember a lot of his wins on Monday Night Raw before
he had a lengthy
left.
Losing streak.
Yeah, so maybe it might be like 7 years since his last win on a Monday Night Raw. But yeah, like you said, good promo exchange. I liked Miz. I think it was a wise decision to have Miz be his first promo exchange on Monday Night Raw because you saw the juxtaposition between a guy who is purely doing his promos based on being a professional wrestler and a guy that has adapted to being a sports entertainer. And when Miz corrected him when he said he wanted to verse the very best wrestlers in all of WWE, Miz saying superstars, and he was like, wrestling superstars, superstars, doesn't matter. Like, that hit it right, nail on the head of the difference between those two. So that was a great promo exchange. The crowd was on fire for Cody.
Yeah.
I like the change of the entrance, because him coming out the gopher hole didn't work out well on the first week, and that was the only nitpick that I really had to his presentation last week on the show.
His damn
This
head
week
was sticking out.
it was a gopher hole. But yeah, I like the smoke and mirrors like that
Yep.
there. And then the pyro, the WrestleMania worth of pyro, they literally had the pyro budget is probably the same amount of money they're paying Cody to be here. So yeah, there was a good presentation, like the match, like the promo, like the exchange with Seth Rollins, setting up WrestleMania Backlash. This seems like it is being positioned as the top program on Monday Night Raw. Well, 1A to the 1B of the tag team division. So
Yeah.
I like what they did here.
Yeah, you before we get into Seth Rollins, you look at Cody and The Miz, I don't think you could find two different performers. Because like you said, it's not only down to one's a sports entertainer, one's a pro wrestler. But if you look at it, Miz has accomplished everything that Cody wants to accomplish. And he has done that by staying in WWE and really never changing. Like, he has been the same guy. When we talked about this yesterday on yesterday's show, he's been the same guy since he beat John Cena in the main event of WrestleMania. So that was 2012. So he's been the same guy for a decade, whereas Cody had to leave, go and learn how to be a true professional wrestler, basically reinvent himself to come back and get this opportunity. And you basically saw that play out in front of the audience on Miz TV last night. Two completely opposite individuals, both incredibly talented. Everything worked there. My concern with Cody and Seth Rollins, as I am as excited as I am for this, because the first match was so great, I'm not sure how you book this. Because Cody's coming in now saying, look, it's all about the title. I want it. He beat The Miz tonight, and he's doing the Aaron Rodgers discount double check, right? Like, he is putting the belt already around his waist. But how quickly are we building to this? Is there a chance here that they do some kind of 50-50 booking where Seth Rollins goes over at WrestleMania Backlash, and that's kind of like the first bump in the road for Cody Rhodes, the first bump in the roads, shall we say, on his way to capture the WWE Championship?
I don't think so. I think that this is more of Seth Rollins picking up more losses. WWE's best way that they have been known to turn someone babyface is a multitude of losses before they eventually turn babyface. They did this in like 2009 with MVP. They did this with so many numerous heels over the last couple of years who they have lose and lose and lose to every single babyface they can until there's no point of them still being a heel because every babyface has beaten them. So they have to turn babyface, and Seth Rollins is already getting that type of reaction. People sing along to his theme song. He's already well on his way to becoming a babyface, and I think another loss is just gonna progress that even more.
I'm wondering if maybe they build Seth Rollins to be, because we don't know if it's going to be Roman and Shinsuke, but that appears to be the direction they're going at WrestleMania Backlash, if there even is a Universal Championship match at WrestleMania Backlash. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, it is Roman and Shinsuke. Okay, what do you do after that? Do you jump right into Cody? Do you go to Drew McIntyre? Seth Rollins is another option because there's still a lot of meat on that bone. I could see them giving Seth the win over Cody to set up Seth and Roman Reigns, because that's a program they want to get done before Cody takes the title off of Roman down the line. It's going to be interesting to see how they book this. You personally, would you have Cody Rhodes lose a match before he wins the WWE Championship, or is he going undefeated the whole way? Would it be better to just kind of rip that Band-Aid off early?
No, he should not lose before he wins the WWE Universal Championship. If he is going to win the Undisputed Universal
We're
Championship,
assuming he
yeah.
is.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I could see Seth Rollins winning here, but not to set up Seth and Roman. I could see them setting up Cody versus Seth 3 inside Hell in a Cell in June.
It's a fair point. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. WWE continuing the name carousel. I know a lot of people were worried that Tommaso Champa, who was reportedly going to be set for this episode of Monday Night Raw in Detroit, a lot of people were wondering what was going to be happening with him. Some rumors he could be joining Edge and Damian Priest, whom we're going to talk about those two gentlemen here coming up here in a little bit. But Tommaso Ciampa, he was on Main Event last night, and then it was made official that he is now a member of Monday Night Raw. That is something I didn't think I would ever see. He seemed like an NXT lifer and maybe a couple of spots here or there, but he's now on the red brand. And at least for this week, he gets to keep his name, SP3. But one guy who is not keeping his name is Austin Theory. They have dropped Austin now. And Vince McMahon must love Cher because he loves to take dudes with two names and drop them down to one. He's done this with Angel. He's done this with Umberto. He's done this with Riddle. He's done this with a myriad of others. And now he has done it to Austin Theory. And I thought you had the perfect analogy up on Twitter, which was what?
A soul for a soul. You had Tommaso Ciampa keep his name, so Austin Theory had to lose one name. That's just how it works, ladies and gentlemen. We need to be thankful that he's not Tommy Champion, because that was very much an option for them. But they went with what works. Tommaso Ciampa works. I thought that this was a nice placement for him, especially, interacting with Kevin Owens and Ezekiel, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite storylines on Monday Night Raw because Kevin Owens is so good at this. And
It's so damn dumb. It's hilarious. Is
Yes,
what
I
it is.
can.
And Kevin Owens can make anything work.
And I can't wait for the lie detector test next week because Kevin Owens is going to be great in that segment. So if this leads to KO versus Ciampa on an episode of Raw, count me in. So I like this use of a backstage segment to introduce a new guy on a brand a lot more than what they did with Raquel Rodriguez on SmackDown.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They tend to get the guy backstage segments more often than they tend to hit home runs with the women backstage segments. That's just classic WWE booking in this sense. Austin Theory did lose his name. The thing that I just wish about that they would have done with this is instead of saying, oh, me and Vince talked about it and we thought that Austin doesn't really fit me, even though he's used Austin Theory for how many years has he been Austin Theory? Like his entire
career, and his real name is Austin.
So there you go. So Austin doesn't fit him. That's what they went with instead of, after what happened at WrestleMania, Vince McMahon never wants to hear the name Austin again. That would have been perfect. Okay, fine. Sold, done. It's just little lines like that just make things so much easier to swallow. Had they come out and said, Vince never wants to hear that name again, so I'm just now Theory, perfect, fine. I can swallow that pill. I'm good with it. This, Austin doesn't fit me, even though it's my actual damn name. No, that don't make no sense. Now, Austin Theory loses a name, could gain a title next week. Do you think there's a title change when he goes up against Finn Balor for the United States Championship on Monday Night Raw?
Yeah, I think Theory's gonna win the United States Championship next week. I don't believe that WWE had any type of plan for Finn Balor as United States Champion, or I don't think they have any type of plan for Finn Balor in general.
Yeah, that certainly seems to be where the evidence is pointing here. We actually have two championship matches set up for next week. I did actually like WWE commentary bringing up the fact that Rhea Ripley was in protocol, which is why she wasn't at ringside. Whether that's factual or not, we don't know. And by the way, we mean COVID protocol. Yes, that is still out there. It is still a thing because they definitely set up this tag team matchup for the women's tag team titles for last night and then changed it 20 minutes before the show starts. So at least they give us a reason for it.
At least we got a reason for this, and we didn't get a reason for why Veer was versing Dominic Mysterio and not Rey Mysterio like they announced last week.
Yeah, and Rey wasn't there. So, and again, there were a couple other people who did not show up. So if one person's in protocol, and that's a legit thing, there's probably a good chance there's more people who are in protocol. So again, we didn't see a lot of people on the show last night. I mean, hell, Rey Mysterio, you brought up Dominic. Dude got stretchered out, and Rey was nowhere to be found. So obviously he wasn't there.
We got Petey Williams on TV, on WWE TV, and I'm always happy for the creator of the Canadian Destroyer to get some TV shine, especially in his new company.
There you go. We got 5 questions we got to shine up for you right now.
It's time to answer the 5 count on the Bleav Podcast Network.
All right, SP3. So we have a new challenger to Bianca Belair. I was pretty sure that it was going to be a rematch between Bianca and Becky. Becky has now not appeared on Raw for the last 2 weeks, so it appears she's taking a little bit of a break, well-deserved after the run that she's had for the last 6, 7, 8 months or so. So they needed a new challenger. Sonya Deville set this whole thing up where she was like, I got this. Don't worry about it, Adam. I've got this approved. Everything's good. I'm going to go down to the ring. She baits Sonya Deville into signing the contract by saying, look, you said you'd defend against anybody, so go ahead and sign this open contract and we'll make it official. Bianca, being the dumb babyface fighting champion, says, absolutely, I will sign this contract without even reading it. Closes it, hands it back to Sonya. Sonya goes, and your opponent is me. And she kicks the ever-living shit out of Bianca Belair. So, I got excited because I'm a huge Sonya Deville fan. I had been wanting to see more of her in the ring. Her not earning the opportunity, but manipulating her way into it fits her character. I like this for a lot of reasons, but I know you have one glaring issue with this, so I'll go ahead and ask you the question and then give you the floor. Any issue with Sonya Deville declaring herself as the new #1 contender for the Raw Women's Championship?
It's just the fact that WWE haven't explained anything about this Sonya Deville character and her role as an official. So I said what I said on the True Hill Heat Twitter page, and I'll say it here. I'll just state the obvious. Sonya Deville is using her power to target Black women. So Sasha Banks, watch out.
Now, you're not the only person that I saw bring this up. All right, and I'm going to try to say this in a way that, like, obviously I see it, right? After it was brought up, I see it. Okay, I do. This is not something that hit me immediately because, and I mean this in a good way, like that's like not the first thing where my mind goes. All right, that's just, I just saw 2 talented women and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a hell of a match. Let's go. It, like, the whole racial impact of everything did not strike me at all. Wasn't the first thing that I went to. And then all of a sudden I hop on my timeline. I'm like, this is awesome. And I'm the only one who's tweeting, this is awesome. I'm like, yes, more Sonya Deville in the ring. That is great. I'm loving it. My counter to that is the first time we ever really saw Sonya Deville manipulate her power, it wasn't against Naomi. It was against Liv Morgan. It was ahead of Money in the Bank. There was that kind of thing where she kept trying to make Liv earn her way in, and then she was putting Carmella in, or she was putting everybody else in. And they were building something there with Liv Morgan. And then Bayley got hurt and could not do the match with Bianca Belair. So they pulled Carmella from that. They just put Naomi in, or excuse me, not Naomi. They put Liv Morgan into the Money in the Bank match and just said, okay, that's it. We're washing our hands. Again, another creative change for Liv Morgan, because what happened after that? Liv Morgan lost the Money in the Bank ladder match, and then she was taken off of television for 6 weeks. So the first time she ever really manipulated her powers, it was going against Liv Morgan, but those creative plans got scrapped. Now, since then, yeah, it's been a bad look.
I mean, you're a guy that admitted yesterday you forgot that Adam Pearce kept Drew McIntyre out of a #1 contenders battle royal, and you're remembering something that lasted about
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3
3
weeks.
weeks. 3 weeks of a story that WWE doesn't even want you to remember.
Correct.
So
Yes.
So no, I don't remember that, and I don't care to try to remember that. I did remember it when you just mentioned it, but nobody else will. So yeah, we remember the 5-month storyline of her
Exactly.
harassing, and using her power against Naomi, and then when she finally decides, you know what, I'm going to use my power to get a championship match. She doesn't go back after. She doesn't wait for Ronda to win the SmackDown Women's title, which would have made sense with what they set up on SmackDown. She instead goes after the black woman again. So I'm sorry. I have to be the guy to mention this. Yes, I'm all fine and dandy with Sonya Deville using her power. It's a good story, all fine and dandy, but I gotta mention that because
The optics.
the optics are not good because they don't explain stuff. They don't
Correct.
explain what's her issue. They never explained what her issue was with Naomi.
Nope.
So when you end that the way they ended it, and then the next time she's really gonna be in a main storyline and a main feud, it's once again with a black woman who just won the championships. Yes, I'm gonna have to mention that. I think they're gonna have a good match together. I think they're gonna have a good feud together, but I can't just ignore the optics of it all.
Right. And again, I chalk this up to, I don't think they're doing it on purpose because that would just be incredibly dumb of them to do that. I just think they never really had, and much like the Rowan and the damn cage, they never had an end game for that. They never had an end game for Naomi and Sonya at all. They just said, "Hey, you hate Naomi, and that's it." And then 5 months later, it's, "Oh, okay, Naomi finally wins. Cool, we're done." Didn't even get that blow off match on a pay-per-view after 5 months. I'd say about 3 of it was really compelling television, but there was definitely some stringing along that was going on there. But I do like this for a number of reasons. One, there's already going to be a lot of rematches on this card. WrestleMania Backlash might as well be called WrestleMania rematches because we're going to get Cody and Seth. We're going to get Charlotte and Ronda. Chances are we're getting Lashley and Omos, and I'm willing to bet that's not going to be the last of the rematches. So this gives us something new. This gives us a new feud to build off of. Also, we talked about this. Bianca needed some new opponents because in the entire time that Becky was the champ, Bianca beat everybody on the damn roster, including Rhea Ripley, who was like the prime number one candidate, especially if she ends up joining Edge and Damian Priest. She had beaten her multiple times in the lead up to WrestleMania.
To be fair, she never beat her one-on-one. She only beat her in a
Correct.
gauntlet match, and she beat her in the Elimination Chamber. She never beat Rhea one-on-one.
Correct. So again, but that's what was part of that made her the best option. But we never considered Sonya Deville because she has been playing this more often than not authority figure and not active competitor. So this kind of came out of left field for me until, of course, they set the whole thing up because it was pretty obvious where this was leading. The second Sonya Deville went down there doesn't mean it wasn't a good segment or a good choice. So it's a new opponent for Bianca. It's a new feud for WrestleMania Backlash. Is going to be full with continuations and rematches. So I'm all for that. But yes, I agree with you. The optics don't look well here. Something else that just didn't end well last night. You want to talk about bad optics? Damian Priest and AJ Styles having a pretty good match. Pretty good match, right? Like, those two work really well with one another. This is the second or third time we've seen them wrestle in the last few months. AJ Styles is going for the phenomenal forearm. He ends up getting a boot to the face. And then Damian Priest goes down in the middle of the ring. He kneels down. He does the Bray Wyatt arm stretch, looks up towards the heavens. The lights go out. Then this like ominous blue light pops up. They do some weird shit to Damian Priest's eyes. And then we go to commercial break. And then we come back, and that was literally it. That's what they ended the match. They no contest due to blue lighting. SP3, I say this as a guy who enjoyed a lot of the Bray Wyatt buffoonery and a lot of what Alexa Bliss did when she basically was given his persona. What the hell was the point of that last night?
It was actually purple lighting. I don't know what the point was. I don't care. I literally questioned why I was staying up for 2 more hours at that point of the show. I was like, do I really care about the subscribers of the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast? And I said yes. So that's why I'm here. But this was the point of no return for me, and it seemed like a lot of people on the timeline were just utterly confused by what the hell this was, because yes, they were having a good match. I was entertained by it. I liked the dynamic of Damian Priest being the heel versus AJ Styles being the baby face. It worked a lot better than their previous meetings, which were both good, but it just works better when you have a heel versus baby face dynamic more. And Damian Priest with his new character, and already they jumped the shark with it. In a matter of weeks, I think they're trying to ruin this whole Edge stable that Rick has been pretty much accurate about for most of this, and they're trying to ruin the one thing that Rick got right in the last 6 months.
I've been right at least 3 other times in the last 6 months. But anyway, hey, remember I call that whole Happy Corbin thing to a T as well. So that's at least 2. All right. So that's at least
that was 8 months ago.
God damn it. All right. Anyway, so yeah. You knew they were going dark with this Edge and Damian Priest thing. I didn't know they were going to go all dark magic, right? Like I didn't think we were actually going to be getting Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss level shenanigans here. So part of me is kind of intrigued as to where this is going, but also there's part of me that knows they didn't want to book Damian to lose. They didn't want to book AJ to lose. And yeah, this is how they decided to go about doing it. Honestly, why couldn't they have just fought to a no contest? Couldn't they? I mean, this is AJ who attacked this man ahead of the match. So this is already personal, right? They had this brawl ahead of time. Why couldn't they just fight into the crowd and fight to a no contest or a double count out or something? That would have been much better, especially if they weren't going to do what a lot of people thought they were going to do. I think a lot of people were anticipating, especially with the report that came out from PW Insider ahead of the show last night, that Tommaso Champa was going to get involved because he has heavily been rumored to be a member of this team, of this group. I think a lot of people are expecting a debut, something, maybe something with Rhea Ripley. Who knows? All of these names that have been rumored to be a part of this faction. They were expecting that, and instead we get blue, purple, whatever the hell color you want to call it, lighting. And then we get the Michael Jackson eyes then we get the Thriller eyes on Damian Priest, and I'm like, what the hell was that? I don't know what the point of it is. But yeah, they are dangerously close to losing people on something that could be really, really good. I think that was if you're gonna introduce stuff like that, wait until people are fully invested, right? Like we were just getting into this. We're like, okay, this has incredible potential. And now you got people backing away. I think you got to lead. I think you got to do with that WWE thing where you try to make us think that nothing ever happened. Just forget it ever happened and just move on.
They're getting very close because the Edge and AJ Styles match didn't hit the levels that everybody thought it would at WrestleMania, and it had a distraction finish to it. And yeah, this week we have purple lighting and a whole entire match, and they say the power went out. That lasted about 2 minutes for the commercial, and then the power back on.
Yeah, that was great. Remember that one time there was like a 45-minute delay in the Super Bowl because the electricity went back out? Electricity didn't just come right back on in big arenas like this. It takes time. Slam's got to heat up. Damian Priest got some power now. He has definitely got some power. Not quite Bray level Wyatt, but hey, maybe he'll evolve to that level. Or maybe Bray Wyatt is behind this. The Undertaker did say he hopes that Bray Wyatt comes back to WWE. So who knows? Maybe that could be in the works. I know. I brought up the dead man. Hey, at least I'm not doing a segment on his podcast that's supposedly coming out.
Yeah, because everybody's so happy that the Undertaker is going to talk about how this generation sucks on a weekly basis on Peacock. Congratulations, dead
By the
man.
way, if you're one of these people on Twitter who's going, hey, they should call it Dead Man Talking, you're not the only one who came up with that. All right. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, Righteous Reg came up with that like 2 years ago. So yeah, you guys need to stop acting like you came up with something new. Just
Correct.
cut it out. And this is why I said yesterday on yesterday's show, I didn't want to watch a 45-minute speech from The Undertaker at the Hall of Fame because I watched the Last Ride series and now everybody can watch his podcast and hear the same stuff that he spoke about for 45 minutes at the damn Hall of Fame. The Steiner brothers are two people. They got 4 minutes. This dude was one person, got 45. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, he basically was a solo inductee into the Hall of Fame this year, so they might as well have just gone ahead and done that. Number 3 here on the 5 count on the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. WWE, to their credit, because so often in the past they have just completely overlooked or underutilized their very, very talented tag team division. Now, to their credit, at least on Monday Night Raw, they have been cooking with gas, and a lot of it has been centered around RK Bro, Alpha Academy, and the Street Profits. And then for a time there, another makeshift tag team, yes, but it still counts, of Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. Now the Usos have entered the fray as they look like they're going to be unifying the tag team titles, which we are both in agreement should happen for the betterment of the tag team division. But they have been putting on banger after banger after banger, and multiple shows have been main evented on Monday Night Raw with the tag team division as of late. And of course, we all know what AEW has been doing with tag team wrestling, and FTR has been the best team in the world for the last couple of months now at this point. So part of me is going, okay, and again, a very small part here, SP3, because I don't for a second believe that either one of us are going to consider the other option on this question, but I figured I'll just throw it out there for some people who might be thinking similarly. God, I can't never say that freaking word. Is WWE putting more stock into tag team wrestling now, seeing how successful AEW has been with it? Or is this simply the fact that Randy Orton happens to be a tag team champion at this point, and the second that that no longer happens, it is right back to regularly scheduled programming?
The latter. Yeah, it's the Randy Orton factor. If Randy Orton wasn't a Raw Tag Team Champion, this title would never see the light of day. It wouldn't get a 25-minute match in that 3-way with Alpha Academy and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. You wouldn't have seen it open the show at WrestleMania Night 2, maybe, but it would have got the same time as the Usos and Nakamura and Rick Boogs if it was, but that was arguably the best match on night 2 of WrestleMania. And a lot of that comes down to their most popular act right now on Monday Night Raw is arguably, outside of Cody Rhodes, it's RK Bro. It's Randy Orton and Riddle. They have caught fire. They have, tapped into something that they probably didn't expect at first, and they're doing well with it to capitalize on it. But it solely comes down to Randy Orton. They didn't keep the same energy when the Street Profits were tag team champions all those times on both Raw and SmackDown. They didn't keep that same energy when the Hurt Business, even though they were aligned with the WWE champion at the time, they didn't keep the same energy then. Even when AJ Styles and Omos was tag team champions, they did not really keep the same energy until RK Bro came into the picture. So it is what it is. It's the Randy Orton factor, but thankfully tag teams are getting spotlighted. So we just need to be happy about it, regardless of the reason why.
Exactly. And that is my exact sentiment, because you know what? Last night, because of the Randy Orton factor, a guy like Montez Ford got to show up and show the hell out. When he did that flip onto the Usos on the outside and landed on his feet and then did that damn shimmy, I am sitting here screaming at my computer screen, boy is a damn star. Book him accordingly. And then, of course, he's the one who takes the loss, and then he takes the RKO after the match is over. But yes, you have guys like the Street Profits and Alpha Academy who are being showcased to a point that they have not been showcased before, and they are thriving because of it. I harken back to when I was talking to Sami Zayn, all right, which that interview is up now on the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast. He was talking about, look, WWE, they prioritize performers, all right? And I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, look, we were talking about the mid-card titles not being on WrestleMania. He was like, trust me, if Roman Reigns is the United States champion, the United States title is making it on WrestleMania. All right. The performer makes the championship. Sammy is a big believer in that. So the fact that Randy Orton, yes, that's the reason. He has got to be the sole damn reason. A little bit. Give a little bit to Matt Riddle as well, because you need the bro to make RK Bro. But Randy Orton is helping elevate the tag team division simply by being there. So I agree with you. Let's enjoy it, because it ain't going to last forever. But at least some of these dudes are getting a chance to show out. And again, I'm all about hope, right? Hopefully it will continue after those titles are taken off of RK Bro, because I do believe the Usos are going to unify those titles sooner rather than later, probably at WrestleMania Backlash. And then we'll get Randy Orton and Matt Riddle's program probably finally starting, like we all assumed it would have started months ago at this point. All right, so I brought this up at the top of the show. Jon Moxley, his name was all over Twitter yesterday, and I'm sitting there, why the hell is everybody talking about Mox? And I text you, I'm like, why the hell are they talking about Mox? And you're like, I don't know, I ain't been on Twitter, let me go check. And you did the smart thing, you checked to see why his name was trending. I could have easily have done that, but thank you for doing the research for me. So you hop on Twitter, you find out, oh, his contract's up in a month, and I'm like, oh, damn. Okay, here we go. Yeah, I guess it has been 3 years at this point. Everybody's on Twitter sitting there arguing back and forth. Oh, well, he could go to WWE, man. Nah, he's going to stay in AEW, man. And that's what everybody was doing on Twitter yesterday. So I'm like, you think we should talk about this? And you're like, yeah, fuck it. It's trending. So here we go. It's time to play everybody's favorite game show, Reckless Speculation. On a scale of 1 to 10, SP3, how confident are you that Jon Moxley will be staying with AEW, even though his contract apparently is up in May?
Is 6 trillion an option? I'm like extremely confident. I broke the scale on how confident I am that Jon Moxley is staying with AEW. Everything this man has said, he has said it from the heart. It is not a guy that you had Bryan Danielson go out on the interview and call him one of the greatest liars he's ever met in his life, like Cody Rhodes, who had a lot of things to say about WWE, and then he turned around and proved himself to be a liar on a couple of those things when he went back to WWE. Jon Moxley has said everything from his heart and the truth. It was a place that basically made him sick. It was kind of like the CM Punk thing,
Correct.
where it made him sick to be there, and the fact that they wouldn't give him the creative freedom. Of course, yeah, if he did view WWE as an option, they would give him more freedom, because you see what they're doing with Cody now. But I'm 100% confident he's staying with AEW, and he's going to resign. He probably the report is going to come out sooner rather than later. He's already signed.
Yeah, he's probably there. And I agree with you. I'm about a 9.99999% sure that he is staying with AEW. And I look, I see the general scope of people on social media saying, well, hey, man, Cody left, right? So now anything is possible. If you want to deal in broad strokes like that, okay, that's fine. That's your prerogative to do so, but you can't do that. You have to look at each individual case. And Cody Rhodes and Jon Moxley are two dudes who are in completely different situations in their life, who want completely different things. Cody was a guy who had accomplished everything that he wanted to accomplish in AEW, or so he says, and he wanted to come back and win the WWE Championship. That was important to him, something that Jon Moxley has already done. He also got a shit ton of money, that he has admitted that he got a shit ton of money to come back to WWE. And most importantly, he got to be himself. He's got a certain level, probably not all the way, but a certain level of creative freedom that he did not have before in his first run. And Stardust is never coming back. That was like the one thing that he absolutely asked. And we got AEW American Nightmare Cody Rhodes. That all worked for him. He signed on the dotted line. No problem with it. That man is going to be WWE champion. Good for him. Jon Moxley has already gotten the bag from WWE, has already turned down the bag from WWE on another contract. He's already won the WWE championship. And as you said, yes, he literally left that company because it was making him physically ill to be there. So much so that they made him get vaccinated on live television. That was the breaking point. The only way that Jon Moxley is ever going to go back to WWE, say for like one big blow off retirement match, maybe they get the Shield triple threat and they get him in for one night only. Outside of that, the only way he's returning to WWE is if he gets a shit ton of money, which is something that he has gone on the record of saying. Number two, 100% creative freedom, which we know probably isn't going to happen. And then number three, even if that did happen, he's going to want to go out there and do the kind of matches that he wants to do, which means crazy barbed wire bleeding all over the ring, crazy ass shit that WWE is never going to agree to. So no, Jon Moxley is not, again, unless it's for one big blow off, he's not going back to WWE, particularly right now. I would be a million times more stunned if Jon Moxley ends back up in WWE. Or Dean Ambrose. He would probably prefer to be going by Jon Moxley at this point than Cody Rhodes. All right. It's not even close. It's not even a competition. So no, Jon Moxley's not going to WWE. If he leaves AEW, he ain't going to WWE. He's going to work in Japan. He's going to do the indie tour that he wanted to do before he knew AEW was a thing. It ain't going down. Round two of Reckless Speculation. Johnny Gargano. That is a name we haven't heard in a while. Been laying low, been living the dad life at home with him and his beautiful wife, his beautiful baby. Living that live at home, stay at home dad life. You do that, SP3. You know what that's like. But, you do the whole podcast thing as well. Got to keep busy. And he's been doing his streams. You guys are basically the same at this point. You and Johnny Gargano are basically the same. Got the same career path going right now. But he was at WrestleCon over the weekend, got interviewed real quick by What Culture, and was talking about his NXT run, which he's gone on the record saying, hey, look, this was a big part of my life, obviously, but I felt like I was done, right? I felt like I had accomplished everything that I had wanted to do in NXT. But he says there's still a lot to accomplish in WWE. He said it was a dream come true to wrestle there. I still dream of one day being Intercontinental Champion, being WWE Champion, wrestling at WrestleMania. Those are goals I have not hit. I'm only 34. I have a long way to go. I've accomplished a lot of things, and I'm far from done. Shawn Michaels came back at 38, had a hell of a run. You never know what could happen in the future. We don't know when or where Johnny Gargano might pop up next, but round two of Reckless Speculation based off of those quotes. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that Johnny Gargano will return to WWE on the main roster? Because it is pretty clear he's done with NXT.
I'm like an 8.5. An 8.5 on this one. That Johnny Gargano will return to WWE. I'll leave 1.5 out there that he might decide, I want to go on an indie tour. I want to go to Japan. I want to do other stuff out there. But I think I'm on the other side of it, where I'm very confident that he is going to return to WWE. He's going to be a main roster guy, preferably on SmackDown, because like we talked about yesterday, they still have that glaring hole in a top babyface position, and I feel more confident in him becoming a top babyface than I am for LA Knight or like anyone else that I could see going to the SmackDown roster. Johnny Gargano is one of the greatest babyfaces WWE has had in the past decade. It's him, Becky Lynch, Sami Zayn. They turned both of those other two heel. They turned Johnny heel as well, but he was so funny as a heel that he turned back babyface. So he is just a natural babyface, and I need to see that on the main roster. And I would love for him to be the smaller underdog babyface that his idol Shawn Michaels was on the main roster.
Yeah, it honestly could fill the the Daniel Bryan role as well. That's exactly the same kind of mold that we're talking about here. And I think the storyline is there, right? For him to come back. I think maybe he doesn't want to come back right away. That's pretty damn obvious. But let's just say toward the end of the year, after the draft is over, they've reshuffled the rosters a little bit. Maybe you have United States champion Theory over there on SmackDown, and then here comes Papa Bear, Johnny Gargano. his mentor from NXT, part of the way, back when Austin Theory was just a freaking meathead doing whatever mommy and daddy said to do over in NXT. That could be a great way to kind of reintroduce him back into the main roster. They don't dive on the history too terribly much, but that would be a great story to go to. And as far as a number, I'm right about there with you, somewhere in that 7 to 8.5 range for me, because trust me, as a guy who is goal oriented, right? Like, if you don't hit those goals, it just eats at you. It eats at you. It just tears you apart, right? This has been a long. I've been a broadcaster for 13 damn years already at this point in my life. I'm 34 this week. I started early. I already feel like an old man in the industry, and I am not even close to accomplishing what I have set out to accomplish in this industry, in this business. But I still keep at it after all these years, knowing that it's very likely I'm not going to get there because I have to give it my all. At this point, I can't quit. I can't give up and try and start something new unless somebody forces me to do it. So I get that. So when he says, look, man, I want to win the Intercontinental Championship. I've always dreamed of wrestling at WrestleMania. I've always dreamed of being a WWE champion. I think 2 out of 3 of those goals are very accomplishable for Johnny Gargano. I don't know if they would ever put the WWE championship on him. I would hope that they would, but damn it, man, if he's throwing out that number of 40, which seems to be the magic number nowadays, because that's the exact same thing that Cody said, but he kind of walked back on that. If he wants to wrestle until he's 40, he's got 6 years. Yeah, man, he's got a main roster running him. But here's the other thing. He also mentioned that number 38. Shawn Michaels came back at 38 and had a hell of a run. He could go to AEW for a few years and then come back to WWE. So that's why I'm not at like a 9 or a 10 on this one like I am with Jon Moxley. I could honestly see him doing both. It just all depends on which one comes first. All right, one for the road here, SP3. You will not be on the NXT recap shows moving forward. Your schedule is too heavy. I respect that. So we're bringing in our good friend, Jeremy Bennett. He is going to be joining the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast team every Wednesday, 7 a.m. with me as we recap. Not all of the show is based around NXT, but a good portion of it is. He will be joining me starting this week, but we can preview it a little bit tonight because it's Title Tuesday. We got all the gold on the line tonight, at least a lot of them. One guaranteed title change because of the whole Nash Carter situation. Who do you think is walking out on one for the road here? Who's walking out as the NXT Tag Team Champions tonight? Big gauntlet match that has been set up.
It should be the Creed brothers. It should have been the Creed brothers at Stand and Deliver. It should have been the Creed brothers way back when they won the Dusty Cup. And I don't understand why they shoehorned MSK in this to begin with, and now they are in this situation. But it should be the Creed brothers. But I there's something in my that's telling me in the back of my head that it's not going to be the Creed brothers. It's something telling me it's really like I think that it's probably more likely to be Pretty Deadly making their debut that they decide to put the titles on. But I'm gonna go with my heart here, which is always unwise when it comes to NXT. But I'm gonna go with my heart and say the Creed brothers.
I'm taking the field. For everything that you just said, I'm going with my brain. It should be the Creeds, but I'm going to pick literally any of the other tag teams in this gauntlet match, but probably the Deadly Boys. What are Pretty Deadly? That's what they're called. It's probably going to be them. It should be the Creeds, but if you give me the Creeds in the field, I'm a gambling man. I'm betting the field on this one.
Yeah, if there was money involved, I would go with the field. I would go with the
I do like Mandy to retain over Dakota Kai as well tonight, and I know that there's another championship match that is
Cameron Grimes versus Sola Sequoia.
Thank you. Yes, I expect Cameron Grimes to retain there as well. All right, guys, myself, Jeremy, we will be back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. to recap everything from Title Tuesday. Thank you for tuning into all 49 minutes of this half-hour podcast. You have been listening to the Bleav in Pro Wrestling podcast, brought to you by Bet Online. Have a wonderful